Hi everyone. So now let's look at the working of our G protein coupled receptors, and this picture is from the CARB textbook, and this explains the whole idea of G protein coupled receptors really well. Okay, so let's walk ourselves through this picture then. So here's our G protein, and see how it has that ligand binding site on it, and it has been shown just so you guys understand it, or we understand it. So here's the receptor, and then this is our G protein, and see how the alpha and the gamma subunits are attached to the plasma membrane with the lipid chain. So that little line, or that little squiggly line, is nothing but so this part here is nothing but a lipid chain. Okay, lipid chain. Actually, you know what? I'm sure you guys will remember that much. Okay, so this is like the topography that we went through. Now what happens in this part here? So when the ligand binds to it, okay, so the ligand is now bound to the receptor. That binding of that ligand to the receptor causes this G protein to come close to the G protein coupled receptor. So see how it has come close. It is still attached to the plasma membrane, so you can still see the squiggly lines. However, it is now close to the receptor. Okay. Now next step. So when it is bound to the coupled receptor, the GPCR, this GTP converts to GDP. Okay. So even till this point, the alpha subunit hasn't turned selfish. It is still hanging out with the beta and the gamma subunits. But now look, the conversion of GTP to GDP, or the conversion of GDP to, I don't know why the arrows would be showing that. That's really, well, oh, okay, I see what they've seen. So at this side, what they're showing is GTP is coming out and GTP is going in. So this is now in GTP form. Okay, so when it is in GTP form, it is active, right? Now, when it becomes active, that's when it dissociates from the beta and the gamma subunit and is just by itself. Okay, now when it is bound to the GTP form, when it is active, it has an affinity for the effector. So this is our effector. A classical example is adenylyl cyclase. So our GTP is now, or sorry, our alpha subunit is now bound to the effector. The beta gamma subunits are hanging around, and in the next step, then you have this binding of the activated alpha subunit. Okay, this is GTP means activated. Okay, so this is active. The active alpha subunit, when it is bound to the effector molecule, causes the production of a second messenger, and the classical example is cyclic AMP. So this is our second messenger molecule. Okay, the second messenger molecule can go about amplifying the signal even further. But what happens then? So now the effector has done its job. It has produced the cyclic AMP. Okay, the alpha subunit is now, it has done its job. So now it has to reset the signal. It needs to go back to its buddies. So the alpha subunit, the GTP, is now converted to GDP, and now it is in its inactive form. Okay, so when it is in its inactive form, it has no affinity for the effector and it will dissociate, and in its inactive form it has affinity for the beta and the gamma subunits, and it goes back to these beta and the gamma subunits, forms the G protein, the whole thing together again. Okay, now in the next step here, these steps are the desensitization steps. Now the conformation change that had happened to the G protein coupled receptor when the ligand was bound to it, those conformational changes that allowed this G protein to come close to the GPCRs also allows another enzyme, the GRK, to come close to the GPCR. This allows this GRK, when phosphorylated, when active, allows for the phosphorylation of the G protein coupled receptor. When the G protein coupled receptor is phosphorylated, the G proteins cannot bind back to the GPCRs, because remember, when the ligand is bound, GPCR has a lot of affinity